You have been tired in a way that sleep does not fix. Not the tiredness of long hours or difficult work, but something deeper. Something that lives in your shoulders, your stomach, your chest. A weight that appeared slowly. So slowly you barely noticed it arriving. You blamed stress. You blamed your schedule. You blamed yourself for not being stronger. But what if the exhaustion is not yours at all? What if your body has been speaking a language you were never taught to translate? And the message it carries is about the person lying next to you. Carl Jung observed something that modern psychology, when a woman lives beside the wrong person, when she suppresses her true self to maintain a bond that contradicts her nature, her body does not stay silent. It protests. It develops symptoms. It speaks in the only language left when words have been abandoned. And the symptoms are not random. They follow a pattern so precise it reads like a map, if you know how to read it. There is a conversation happening in psychology right now that most people will never hear. It concerns the relationship between romantic partnership and physical health. Not in the vague sense of stress is bad for you, but in the specific, measurable way that living with the wrong person rewrites your nervous system. Jung called it psychosomatic expression, the body becoming the voice of the unlived life. He noticed it most frequently in women, not because women are weaker, but because women are socialized to silence when a woman senses that her partnership is wrong, that the person beside her contradicts something essential in her nature, she faces an impossible choice. Speak the truth and risk the bond, or silence the truth and keep the peace. Most choose peace, and the body pays the price. This is not weakness. This is the nervous system doing exactly what it was designed to do, converting psychological conflict into physical signal when the conscious mind refuses to act. Jung understood something that took Western medicine another century to validate. The psyche and the body are not separate systems. They are one system expressing itself through two languages, thought and sensation. When a woman lives in relational misalignment, when her deepest self recognizes that her partner is wrong for her, but her conscious mind overrides that recognition, the conflict does not disappear. It migrates. It moves from the realm of feeling into the realm of flesh. This is not metaphor. The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the body's central stress response system, does not distinguish between a physical threat and a psychological one. A woman who wakes every morning beside someone who diminishes her experiences the same cortisol cascade as a woman in genuine danger. Over weeks, over months, over years, the body begins to change. Not dramatically at first, subtly. Sleep that stops restoring. Energy that stops returning. Jung wrote about this in his clinical work with women in the early 20th century. He observed that many of his female patients presented with physical symptoms that had no organic cause, symptoms that resolved only when the underlying psychological conflict was finally addressed. The conflict, in case after case, was relational. The woman knew she was with the wrong person. Her body knew before she did. And it had been screaming in the only language available, pain, fatigue, tension, illness, waiting for her to finally listen. But here is what most people never understand about this process. The body is not punishing you. It is protecting you. Every symptom is an alarm. Every ache is a message. And the message is always the same. Something in your life contradicts who you actually are. and your body will not let you forget it, no matter how hard your mind tries to override the signal. The question is not whether your body is speaking. The question is whether you have been willing to hear what it says. What your body has been telling you, perhaps for months, perhaps for years, deserves to be named, not analyzed, not defended, not explained away. Simply named. Tell me in the comments, what is the one physical symptom that appeared in your life during a relationship that you already suspected was wrong? The symptom you explained away, medicated, or simply endured because admitting its source would have meant admitting something larger about your life. Write it below. You do not need to have the full picture yet. You do not need to. Just naming the symptom, just acknowledging that your body was trying to reach you, is already the beginning of a different relationship with yourself. The kind of relationship where you trust the signal instead of overriding it. If this is the kind of understanding you want to keep building, subscribe. What comes next goes deeper into the specific patterns, the specific symptoms, and the specific inner work that makes hearing your own body possible again. Now let us look at how this actually appears in a woman's life. Not in theory, not in clinical language, in the daily texture of lived experience. The first symptom is almost always sleep disruption. Not insomnia in the dramatic sense, not lying awake for hours staring at the ceiling. Something more subtle than that. You sleep. You get your 7 or 8 hours. But you wake feeling as though you have not rested at all. The body went through the motions of sleep without ever reaching the depth where restoration happens. This is your nervous system refusing to fully surrender. When you live beside someone your deeper self does not trust, someone your body has identified as misaligned with your nature, your system will not allow complete relaxation. It maintains a low-level vigilance even in sleep. You might notice that you sleep better when your partner is away. That business trips or visits to family feel strangely restful. You tell yourself, it is the novelty of having the bed to yourself. But it is not novelty. It is safety. Your body finally stands down because the source of its vigilance is temporarily absent. Jung would have called this the body's refusal to surrender the ego boundary in the presence of a psychic threat. In simpler terms, you cannot fully rest beside someone your soul recognizes as wrong for you. The body will not allow it. The second symptom lives in your muscles, specifically in the jaw, the shoulders, and the lower back. You carry tension that no amount of stretching resolves. You unclench your jaw, and 5 minutes later, it is clenched again. Your shoulders ride up toward your ears as though bracing for impact. An impact that never comes in the physical world, but arrives daily in the emotional one. This is the body in permanent brace position. It is preparing for conflict that your conscious mind has decided to avoid. Every conversation you do not have, every boundary you do not set, every truth you swallow instead of speaking, your muscles hold it instead. The jaw holds the words you did not say. The shoulders hold the lower back holds the weight of supporting a dynamic that does not support you. You have probably been to massage therapists who comment on how tight you are. You have probably been told to relax as though relaxation were a choice. It is not a choice. It is a consequence. You cannot relax a body that is bracing against a life that feels wrong. The third symptom targets the gut. bloating without dietary explanation, nausea that appears in the morning and fades by afternoon, irritable bowel patterns that no elimination diet resolves. The gut contains more neurons than any other part of the body outside the brain. It is, in a very literal sense, your second nervous system, and it responds to emotional truth with chemical precision. When you live in a state of chronic emotional suppression, when you swallow your real feelings day after day to maintain peace, your digestive system mirrors the suppression physically. It stops processing efficiently. Jung observed that his patients with the most pronounced gastrointestinal symptoms were almost invariably those who had the most difficulty expressing anger. Women who had learned to be pleasant at all costs. Women who redirected their legitimate fury into their own bodies because there was nowhere else safe for it to go. Your gut is not malfunctioning. It is reflecting. It is showing you, in the language of the body, what happens when truth is swallowed instead of spoken. The fourth symptom is perhaps the most alarming. You begin getting sick more frequently. Colds that linger for weeks. Infections that recur. A general sense that your immune system has simply stopped fighting for you. This is not coincidence, and it is not age. Chronic psychological stress, the specific kind generated by relational misalignment, suppresses immune function through sustained cortisol elevation. Your body cannot simultaneously fight external threats and manage the internal war between what you know and what you refuse to admit. Research in psychoneuroimmunology has confirmed what Jung intuited a century ago. The immune system is not independent of emotional life. It is deeply responsive to it. Women in chronically dissatisfying relationships show measurably lower natural killer cell activity. The cells responsible for identifying and destroying your body is not failing you. It is prioritizing. It is allocating all available resources to managing the psychological emergency of living misaligned. And there is simply nothing left for immune defense. You are not weak. You are depleted. And you are depleted because something in your life is consuming energy that was meant to keep you well. The fifth symptom strikes at the most intimate level. Desire, not just sexual desire, but desire for life itself, begins to fade. You lose interest in things that once excited you. Hobbies feel empty. Goals feel distant. The future feels flat instead of full. And yes, physical desire diminishes too. Not because of age or hormones, though those become convenient explanations, but because desire requires safety. Authentic arousal requires the absence of threat. And when your nervous system is in permanent low-level alarm, when your body knows that the person beside you contradicts your nature, desire becomes impossible. Jung wrote extensively about libido, not in the narrow sexual sense, but as life force itself. The energy that drives creation, curiosity. When this energy is consumed by the work of suppression, by the daily labor of being someone you are not beside someone who requires your inauthenticity, there is simply nothing left for desire. You are not broken. You are not frigid. You are not past your prime. You are channeling every ounce of life force into maintaining a fiction. And the fiction has consumed what should have been yours. The sixth symptom is the most symbolic and perhaps the most revealing. You begin to lose your literal voice. Chronic throat tightness. A feeling of something stuck. Difficulty speaking up in meetings, with friends, in situations where you once spoke freely. Some women develop actual vocal hoarseness with no medical explanation. Jung would have recognized this immediately. The throat chakra, the energetic center of expression and truth, closes when truth is systematically suppressed. This is not mysticism. This is the body's symbolic intelligence, operating at its most transparent. You cannot speak your truth in your relationship. You have trained yourself to swallow words, redirect conversations, avoid confrontation. And over time, the body takes literally what the psyche experiences metaphorically. You have been silenced. Not by violence, perhaps not even by explicit demand, but by the slow daily accumulation of 1,000 small moments where your truth was not welcome, not safe, not received, and your body, faithful recorder that it is, has made the silence physical. Now you see the individual symptoms, but Jung's framework reveals something deeper, a pattern beneath the patterns that most people miss entirely. These 6 symptoms are not random physiological events. They are a coherent narrative. They tell a single story in 6 different dialects of the body's language. The story is this: a woman who was once whole, who once had voice, desire, rest, strength, digestion, and immunity, has been slowly fragmenting under the weight of a relationship that contradicts her essential nature. Each symptom represents a faculty that has been sacrificed to maintain the bond. Sleep was sacrificed to maintain vigilance. Muscular ease was sacrificed to maintain readiness. Digestion was sacrificed to maintain the swallowing of truth. Immunity was sacrificed to manage the chronic emergency. Desire was sacrificed because safety was never established. Voice was sacrificed. This is what Jung meant by the unlived life making you sick. Not the life you dream about in some abstract future sense, but the specific daily life that your body needs and your relationship refuses to allow. The unlived life is the life where you sleep deeply because you feel safe, where your jaw is soft because you speak freely, where your stomach settles because you do not swallow rage, where your immune system thrives because it is not fighting a war on 2 fronts, where desire flows because your nervous system trusts, where your voice rings clear because your truth is welcome. And that life is not a fantasy. It is your birthright. And your symptoms are not punishments for failing to achieve it. They are invitations to reclaim it. Jung identified a specific psychological process that operates beneath these physical symptoms. He called it dissociation from the self, the gradual disconnection between who a woman actually is and who her relationship requires her to be. Every relationship creates a persona, a relational mask. This is normal and healthy in small doses. We all adjust slightly for our partners. We compromise, we accommodate. But there is a threshold, a point where accommodation becomes self-abandonment, where compromise becomes erasure, where the mask becomes so thick, so permanent, so fused to the face that the woman beneath it begins to forget she exists. This is not a dramatic event. It happens in tiny increments, a preference unexpressed here, a boundary unchallenged there, a feeling dismissed as overreaction. Year after year, the real woman shrinks while the relational persona expands, until the persona is all that remains visible, and the true self exists only as a whisper the body can barely hear. But the body hears it. The body always hears it. And the symptoms you carry are that whisper made loud enough to finally reach your conscious awareness. Let us be precise about what wrong person means in this framework. Because Jung was not speaking about good people versus bad people. He was not describing abuse, though abuse certainly qualifies. He was describing something more subtle and perhaps more common. The wrong person is someone whose presence requires you to fragment, someone beside whom you cannot be whole. Not because they are evil, but because the shape of their needs and the shape of yours create a geometry that can only be solved by one of you disappearing. And in heterosexual dynamics, Jung observed, it is overwhelmingly the woman who disappears. Not because she is weaker, but because she is culturally trained to prioritize relational harmony over personal truth. She is taught that maintaining the bond is her responsibility. That if she is unhappy, if this reframe has shifted something in you, if you recognize yourself in these words in a way that feels both uncomfortable and strangely freeing, a like puts it in front of someone else who needs to hear exactly this right now. The wrong person is not necessarily cruel. They may be kind in many ways. They may provide stability, companionship, even genuine affection. But if their presence requires you to be less than you are, if loving them means abandoning yourself, then the geometry is wrong. And your body has been telling you this all along. Here is where the reframe becomes radical. Your symptoms are not problems to be solved. They are not disorders to be medicated. They are not weaknesses to be overcome. They are intelligence. Your body is the most honest thing about you. It cannot lie. It cannot rationalize. It cannot construct elaborate stories about why this relationship is actually fine, why you should be grateful, why other people have it worse. Your body just tells the truth every single day, in the language of tension and exhaustion and illness and silence. And the truth it tells is not that you are broken. The truth is that you are whole, and you are living in a configuration that denies your wholeness. This is what Jung called the wisdom of the symptom. The symptom is not the enemy. The symptom is the messenger. And killing the messenger through medication, through distraction, through sheer willpower, does not change the message. It only delays the reckoning. The reckoning is not punishment. It is liberation. It is the moment you finally say, I hear you. I believe you. I will act on what you are telling me. The first practice is deceptively simple but profoundly difficult. It is the practice of body dialogue, a deliberate daily conversation with your own physical experience. Each morning, before you rise, before you check your phone, before you speak to anyone, you lie still and scan. Not to fix, not to judge, not to diagnose. Simply to ask, what are you holding today? Where is the tension? Where is the weight? What does it feel like? You do not need to interpret what you find. You do not need to make decisions based on it. You simply need to acknowledge it. To say, with your attention, I notice you. I am not ignoring you anymore. This practice rewires the fundamental relationship between your conscious mind and your body's intelligence. For years, perhaps decades, you have overridden your body's signals. You have told it to be quiet, to stop being dramatic, This practice reverses that pattern. It says, your signals matter. Your language is valid. I am learning to hear you. Do this for 30 days, not as a diagnostic tool, not to build a case for leaving. Simply as an act of reunion, the conscious self finally turning towards the body that has been faithfully speaking the truth all along. The second practice addresses the throat directly. The sixth symptom, the silenced voice. It is the practice of speaking one true thing per day that you would normally swallow, not to your partner, not necessarily about your relationship, but somewhere in your life, to a friend, a colleague, a stranger yourself. You speak one truth that your habitual pattern would have suppressed. It can be small. I did not enjoy that. I disagree. That hurt my feelings. I need something different. The content almost does not matter. What matters is the act of breaking the suppression pattern at any point in the circuit. Because suppression is not targeted. When you silence yourself in one area of life, and when you begin speaking truth in any area, even a small one, the liberation also generalizes. Jung understood that the shadow does not release in grand dramatic gestures. It releases in daily micro-acts of courage. One true sentence today, one more tomorrow, until the pathway between your inner knowledge and your spoken word is open again, and your throat can finally relax because it is no longer holding back a flood. The third practice is perhaps the most radical. It is the practice of treating your body as the final authority on your relational life. Above your mind, above your guilt, above your fear of being alone. This means that when your body says no, when your stomach tightens, when your shoulders rise, when your sleep disappears, when your voice closes, you believe it. You do not override it with logic. You do not explain it away with should. You treat the body's verdict as data, real data, data that deserves the same weight as any thought your mind produces, perhaps more weight, because your mind has been trained to accommodate, to rationalize, to maintain. Your body has no such training. It simply reports what is true. This is not about making dramatic decisions tomorrow. This is about shifting the internal hierarchy. For your entire life, your mind has been the dictator. This practice inverts that relationship, not permanently, but enough to restore balance, enough to hear the signals you have been overriding, enough to trust what you already know. Jung wrote that individuation, the process of becoming who you actually are, always requires listening to what the ego wants to silence. Your body is the voice your ego has been silencing. And your symptoms are the proof that the silencing has cost you far more than you realized. Remember the tiredness you felt at the beginning? The exhaustion that sleep could not fix. You understand it now. It was never fatigue. It was your body carrying the full weight of a truth your mind refused to hold. Every symptom you have carried, the sleeplessness, the tension, the gut disruption, the failing immunity, the vanished desire, the closing throat, was never a malfunction. It was a message. And the message was always the same. You are whole. You were always whole. And you have been living in a configuration that denies your wholeness. The path forward is not about blame. It is not about villainizing your partner or dramatizing your pain. It is about something quieter and far more powerful. It is about finally, after all this time, believing your own body, trusting its language, honoring its truth. You were just living beside something that required your breaking. And the moment you stop agreeing to that arrangement, the moment your body's verdict becomes louder than your fear, everything begins to change. Not instantly, not painlessly, but truthfully. And truth, after years of suppression, is the most healing force available to you. There is something else that happens when a woman begins to trust her body's language. Something Jung described but rarely gets discussed in popular psychology. He called it the withdrawal of projections, and it changes everything. When you have been living with the wrong person, you have been projecting parts of yourself onto them. Your need for safety, your desire for wholeness, your hunger to be seen. These are not flaws. They are natural movements of the psyche seeking completion. But when those projections land on someone who cannot hold them, someone who distorts them or ignores them entirely, your body absorbs the cost of that failed landing. Every time you projected your need for emotional safety onto someone incapable of providing it, your nervous system registered the gap. Every time you handed your need for recognition to someone who looked through you, your throat tightened. Every time you offered your vulnerability to someone who met it with indifference, your immune system took the hit. This is not metaphor. This is the psychosomatic mechanism Jung spent decades mapping. The body becomes the ledger where unresolved psychic debt is recorded. And the debt compounds silently until the symptoms become impossible to ignore. The withdrawal of projections is not about becoming cold. It is not about closing your heart or building walls. It is about reclaiming the pieces of yourself that you handed to someone who never earned them. It is about recognizing that the safety you sought in them was always available within you, buried under years of accommodation, but never destroyed. When you begin this withdrawal, when you stop asking them to be what they cannot be, something remarkable happens in your body. The tension begins to release, not all at once, not dramatically, but steadily. Because your nervous system finally receives the message it has been waiting for. You are no longer asking it to maintain an impossible position. You have been holding yourself ready to adapt, ready to soothe, ready to shrink, ready to perform the version of yourself that keeps the peace. And your body has been paying the metabolic cost of that readiness every single day. The moment you stop, truly stop, the body responds with something that feels almost foreign. Rest. Real rest. The kind that reaches your bones. Healing does not look the way you expect. It does not arrive as a revelation or a dramatic moment of clarity. More often, it arrives as absence. The absence of the knot in your stomach when you wake. The absence of the rehearsed conversation running through your mind at 3 a.m. The absence of the flinch before you speak. You will notice it in small ways first. Your jaw unclenches during the day without you forcing it. Your appetite returns, not ravenous but genuine. You sleep through the night and wake without the weight already pressing down. Your hands stop gripping. These are not small things. These are your body reporting that the threat has been acknowledged, that the signal has finally been received, that the truth you carried alone for so long has been witnessed, even if only by yourself. Jung understood that the unconscious does not require external validation to begin healing. The moment you stop lying to yourself about what your body has been telling you, the moment you stop overriding the verdict with excuses, with hope, with fear of change, the healing begins automatically. Your body has been waiting for your permission, not your partner's approval, not society's blessing, not the perfect moment or the right circumstances, just yours, just the quiet internal acknowledgement. Yes, I hear you. Yes, I believe you. Yes, I will act on what you are telling me. That is all it takes to begin. Not courage in the way the world defines it. not grand gestures or explosive confrontations. Just the radical act of believing your own experience over the story you have been told to accept. There is a specific moment in every woman's journey where the body's truth becomes louder than her fear. Jung called it the moment the self speaks louder than the ego. It is not dramatic from the outside. No one around you may even notice when it happens. But inside, everything shifts. It is the moment you stop asking whether you are allowed to feel what you feel. The moment you stop wondering if your symptoms are real enough, valid enough, serious enough to justify change. The moment your body's 6-month migraine becomes the only evidence you need. This is individuation, not as a concept in a textbook, not as a philosophical ideal, but as a lived, embodied experience happening in your muscles, your hormones, your immune cells, your sleep cycles, your body individuating on your behalf. If you have felt what we just described, if something shifted in your chest while listening to these words, a like puts this in front of someone else who needs to hear it tonight. Someone whose body has been screaming the same truth with no one to translate it. The revolution is quiet. It happens in the space between what you used to tolerate and what you now refuse. It happens in the gap between the old accommodation and the new boundary. It happens in the first morning you wake up and realize the knot is gone. Not because anything external changed, but because something internal finally did. You stopped abandoning yourself and your body, that faithful, patient, relentless messenger, finally got to rest. The most difficult part is not realizing you are with the wrong person. The most difficult part is what comes after the knowing. The hours, days, and weeks where you hold the truth and have not yet acted on it. Where your body has delivered its verdict and your life has not yet caught up. This is the space where most women get stuck. Not because they are weak, not because they lack clarity, but because the logistics of change feel overwhelming when you are already running on depleted reserves. You are being asked to make the most important decision of your life, using a body that has been exhausted by years of carrying it alone. Be gentle with yourself in this space. The knowing is already the hardest part. Everything that follows is simply administration, logistics, the mechanics of rearranging an external life to match an internal truth you already possess. Your body did the work of recognition when your mind could not. Let the pace of change match your capacity, not anyone else's timeline, not society's expectations of how quickly you should act. You are not behind. You are not late. You are exactly where a woman arrives when she has finally stopped lying to herself. And from this place, this honest, grounded, body-trusting place, every step forward is a step toward your own life. Not the life you performed, not the life you maintained, not the life you endured, your life. If you want to continue this work, if the understanding that arrived tonight is something you want to build on, deepen, and return to week after week, subscribe. What comes next goes further. We explore the shadow patterns that keep women trapped in cycles they cannot name. We map the Jungian architecture beneath relationships, identity, and the slow process of becoming who you actually are. This is not surface-level content. This is the work of reclamation, and it continues every time you return. The symptoms were never the problem. They were always the proof that something in you refused to disappear. Something in you kept speaking the truth, even when you could not. Something in you was already whole, waiting for you to stop agreeing to be broken. You were never broken. You were just living in a story that required your silence. And your body, faithful, patient, unrelenting, refused to be silent on your behalf. Thank you for being here. I will see you in the next one.